I'm standing in the marble lobby of Thornfield Industries, clutching a positive pregnancy test in my trembling hands, watching my family celebrate my cousin Vivienne's engagement to some tech startup founder they just met 3 weeks ago. The champagne flows freely as my parents, aunt, and uncle shower her with congratulations, promises of financial support for the wedding, and excited chatter about grandchildren. But 6 hours earlier, when I called to share my own life-changing news, the phone went silent before my mother Celeste simply said, "Well, I suppose these things happen, Penelope. We'll talk later," and hung up. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. That was it. No excitement, no questions about my health, no mention of their future grandchild. Just the same dismissive tone they've used my entire 26 years whenever I dared to need something from them. And now here I am, watching them plan Vivienne's entire future while pretending I don't exist. Just like they did when I graduated summa cum laude from Clearwater University, and they skipped the ceremony for Vivienne's art show opening. Just like when I got promoted to senior marketing director at Waverly Communications and they forgot to even acknowledge it because Vivienne had started her pottery classes that same week. The irony burns in my chest like acid. Vivienne, who's never held a job longer than 6 months, who's been financially supported by our family for her entire adult life, gets treated like royalty for announcing an engagement to someone she barely knows. Meanwhile, I've been financially independent since college, worked my way up in one of Millbrook's most competitive marketing firms, and I'm carrying their first biological grandchild. But apparently, that's just one of those things that happens. My father Theodore adjusts his Rolex as he raises his champagne flute. "To Vivienne and her bright future," he announces, his voice carrying across the upscale restaurant they chose for this impromptu celebration. The same father who couldn't be bothered to return my call earlier, despite knowing I had important news to share. Aunt Cordelia dabs at her eyes with her silk napkin, overcome with emotion about her daughter's happiness, while Uncle Reginald talks about gifting them the down payment for a house in Elmhurst Gardens, the most exclusive neighborhood in our city. I think about the cramped one-bedroom apartment I've been saving every penny to afford, working 60-hour weeks and skipping meals to make rent on time. The same apartment where I took that pregnancy test this morning, alone, because the father, my ex-boyfriend Oliver, had made it clear months ago that he wasn't ready for any kind of commitment, let alone parenthood. The same apartment where I spent 3 hours practicing how to tell my family about their grandchild, rehearsing the words that I thought would finally make them see me as worthy of their attention and love. "Penelope, darling, you look pale," Aunt Cordelia says, finally noticing my presence. "Are you feeling all right? You've been so quiet tonight." The irony of her concern nearly makes me laugh out loud. I could tell them right now. I could announce that in 7 months, they'll have a grandchild to spoil and celebrate. But I already know how this scene would play out. The conversation would shift back to Vivienne within minutes. My pregnancy would become an inconvenience, something that might overshadow their golden child's engagement festivities. They'd probably suggest I wait to make any announcements until after Vivienne's wedding so as not to steal her thunder. So instead, I force a smile and lie. "Just tired from work. You know how demanding the Patterson account has been." Of course, they don't know. They've never asked about my career beyond the obligatory small talk at family gatherings. They couldn't name a single client I've worked with or project I've led, despite my success being featured in Millbrook Business Journal twice this year. Vivienne giggles as she shows off her engagement ring for the 15th time tonight. It's beautiful, I'll give her that. A 3-carat diamond that probably cost more than I make in 6 months. "We're thinking a spring wedding," she gushes. "Maybe in Tuscany?" Reginald said he'd cover the destination costs for immediate family. Immediate family. The phrase stings because it's never included me in the way it should. I'm immediate family by blood, but somehow always peripheral in practice. Always the afterthought, the one they remember to invite at the last minute, the one whose achievements get footnoted, while Vivienne's smallest accomplishments get front-page treatment in the family newsletter. My phone buzzes with a text from my best friend Luna. How did they react to the baby news? Calling you in an hour for details. I quickly silence the phone, not ready to explain that I never even got the chance to properly share the news. How do you tell your best friend that your own family cares more about your cousin's 3-week engagement than your pregnancy? The waiter brings another round of champagne for everyone except me. I'd already declined earlier, claiming I was on antibiotics, but of course no one questioned it or showed any concern about my health. They're too wrapped up in planning Vivienne's fairy tale to notice that their daughter and niece might need support, might have news worth celebrating, might be facing the scariest and most wonderful moment of her life. As I sit there watching my family plan Vivienne's future with the kind of enthusiasm and financial backing they've never offered me, I make a decision. I'm not going to beg for their attention anymore. I'm not going to shrink myself to make room for their golden child. I'm going to have this baby, and I'm going to build the kind of life that makes them regret every moment they chose to overlook me. What I don't know yet is that the man I've chosen as my baby's godfather, my mentor and boss at Waverly Communications, Jonathan Ashworth, is about to become the most powerful person in my family's professional world. And when that revelation comes to light, everything about our family dynamic is going to change in ways none of us could have imagined. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 3 weeks after the engagement celebration that felt more like my own funeral, I'm sitting in Jonathan Ashworth's corner office at Waverly Communications, trying to focus on the quarterly reports spread across his mahogany desk. But my mind keeps drifting to the ultrasound photo tucked safely in my purse, my first glimpse of the tiny life growing inside me. At 10 weeks pregnant, I'm starting to show just enough that my blazers feel tight, and the morning sickness has become an unwelcome companion that strikes at the most inconvenient moments. "Penelope, you seem distracted today," Jonathan says, his warm hazel eyes studying me with the kind of genuine concern I've never received from my own family. At 42, he's built Waverly Communications from a small boutique agency into one of Millbrook's most respected marketing firms. But he's never lost his ability to see his employees as people rather than just productivity metrics. "Is everything all right?" I hesitate, my fingers unconsciously moving to my still flat stomach. Jonathan has been more than just a boss to me over the past 3 years. He's been a mentor, a father figure, someone who actually listens when I speak and celebrates my achievements with genuine pride. When I landed the Patterson account that everyone said was impossible, he took me to dinner at Meridian, the city's most exclusive restaurant. When my parents forgot my birthday last year, he surprised me with a cake in the conference room and made the entire team sing happy birthday. "Actually," I say, making a decision that feels both terrifying and liberating, "there is something I wanted to share with you, something important." Jonathan immediately closes his laptop and gives me his full attention, a gesture that strikes me as profound after weeks of my family treating my pregnancy announcement like background noise. "I'm listening." "I'm pregnant," I say simply, and then wait for the reaction I've been hoping to see from someone, anyone who matters to me. His face lights up immediately. "Penelope, that's wonderful news. Congratulations." He stands up and comes around the desk, his enthusiasm genuine and warming. "How are you feeling? Do you need anything? We should discuss how to adjust your workload, make sure you're not overdoing it with the long hours." Tears spring to my eyes before I can stop them. This is the reaction I dreamed of getting from my parents. This is what excitement and support look like. "Thank you," I whisper, overwhelmed by the simple act of someone caring about my well-being. "Hey, are you okay?" Jonathan asks, his voice gentle as he hands me a tissue from the box on his desk. "It's just—" I take a shaky breath. "You're the first person who's reacted like this is good news. My family, they barely acknowledged it. My mother hung up on me when I told her." Jonathan's expression shifts from joy to something harder, more protective. "They hung up on you, Penelope? That's inexcusable. You're carrying their grandchild." Sometimes I wonder if they'd care more if it was Vivienne's baby instead of mine. I admit, the words tumbling out before I can censor them. She's always been the one who matters, the one who gets the attention, the financial support, the celebration for every little milestone. Tell me about this cousin, Jonathan says, settling back into his chair with the patient attention of someone who genuinely wants to understand. So I do. I tell him about growing up in Vivienne's shadow, about graduations and promotions that went unnoticed while her smallest achievements got family-wide celebrations. I tell him about the engagement party where they planned her entire future while ignoring my pregnancy completely. I tell him about working 60-hour weeks to afford my tiny apartment while watching them hand Vivienne down payments and trust funds, like party favors. Jonathan listens without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each example. When I finish, he's quiet for a long moment, fingers steepled in front of him in the gesture I recognize as his thinking pose. "Penelope," he says finally, "what's your family's last name again?" "Hartwell," I say, confused by the sudden shift in his tone. "Why?" Something flickers across Jonathan's face. Surprise, recognition, maybe even amusement. He turns to his computer and types something quickly, his eyebrows rising as he reads whatever appears on his screen. "Is your father Theodore Hartwell? Senior partner at Hartwell, Morrison and Associates?" My stomach drops. "Yes, that's him. How did you—" Jonathan turns his monitor toward me, and I see the Waverly Communications client roster displayed on the screen. There, highlighted in yellow, is a name that makes my blood run cold. Hartwell, Morrison and Associates, retained for corporate restructuring campaign. "Your father's firm hired us 3 months ago," Jonathan says quietly. "They're going through a major merger with Blackstone Financial, and they need a complete rebranding campaign. It's our biggest contract this year." The room seems to tilt around me. My family's accounting firm, the source of all their wealth and prestige, is a client of Waverly Communications. Which means Jonathan isn't just my boss and mentor. He's about to become one of the most important people in my family's professional world. "They don't know I work here," I say slowly, pieces clicking into place. "I've never mentioned Waverly by name at family gatherings. They've never asked enough about my job to know the company name." Jonathan leans back in his chair, and I can practically see the wheels turning in his mind. So they have no idea that their daughter, the one they've been dismissing and overlooking, works for the firm that's about to handle the most crucial campaign in their company's history. None whatsoever, I confirm, my heart starting to race as I understand the implications. "And they definitely don't know that you're one of my most trusted senior directors, or that you'll likely be the lead on their account if you're interested in taking it on." The irony is so thick I can barely breathe. The family that treats me like an afterthought is about to discover that their professional future depends, in part, on the daughter they've spent 26 years undervaluing. "There's something else," I say, the words forming as the idea crystallizes in my mind. "I've been thinking about who I want as my baby's godfather. Someone who would actually be present in their life, who would love and support them unconditionally." I meet his eyes directly. "I'd like that to be you, Jonathan. If you're willing." The smile that spreads across his face is radiant. "Penelope, I would be honored, absolutely honored." Neither of us says it out loud, but we're both thinking the same thing. My family is about to learn that the godfather of their first grandchild, the baby they barely acknowledged, is the man who holds their company's future in his hands. And something tells me that revelation is going to change everything. The discovery about my father's firm being Jonathan's client sends me spiraling into memories I've spent years trying to suppress. That evening, I sit in my apartment with a cup of chamomile tea, my laptop open to old family photos stored in the cloud, trying to make sense of the pattern that's suddenly crystal clear. I click through images from my childhood, each one telling the same story with painful consistency. There's my 8th birthday party. Just me, my parents, and a grocery store cake, because Vivienne had her dance recital that same weekend, and we couldn't possibly miss that. Meanwhile, Vivienne's 8th birthday 6 months later shows 30 kids in our backyard, a professional photographer, and a custom princess cake that cost more than most people's rent. The photos from my high school graduation make my chest tight. I'm standing alone in my cap and gown outside Millbrook Academy, my parents nowhere to be seen because they were helping Vivienne move into her freshman dorm at art school. "We'll celebrate when we get back," Mom had promised. But when they returned 3 days later, the moment had passed. No dinner, no gifts, no acknowledgement that their daughter had graduated valedictorian from one of the state's most prestigious prep schools. But there's Vivienne's high school graduation album, 50 photos of a party that lasted until midnight, relatives flying in from 3 states, and a brand new MacBook Pro as a gift. Vivienne had graduated with a 2.8 GPA and no plans beyond finding herself through art, but you'd think she'd cured cancer based on the celebration they threw. I scroll further back, to the family vacation photos that tell an even more disturbing story. When I was 12 and Vivienne was 14, we went to Europe for 3 weeks. Every single photo from Paris, Rome, and Barcelona features Vivienne front and center, beaming at the camera, while I'm either cropped out, blurry in the background, or completely absent. I remember now how I spent most of that trip walking behind them, carrying everyone's shopping bags while they posed for endless pictures that would become memories of our amazing family vacation. The pattern becomes more obvious the deeper I dig. Christmas mornings where Vivienne's gifts filled half the living room while mine fit in a small corner. School events where my parents arrived late to my performances but sat front row for hers. College applications where they hired a private consultant for Vivienne's art school portfolios, but told me to figure out the academic scholarships on my own because you're smart enough to handle it yourself. Even my college graduation from Clearwater University, where I earned a double major in marketing and communications with summa cum laude honors, was overshadowed by Vivienne's pottery show opening the same weekend. I'll never forget sitting in the auditorium, scanning the crowd for my family's faces as they called my name for the Dean's Award, only to realize they weren't there. They'd driven 6 hours to attend Vivienne's art show instead, where she sold exactly 3 pieces to family friends who bought them out of obligation. My phone rings, interrupting my painful trip down memory lane. Luna's name flashes on the screen, and I answer immediately, grateful for the distraction. "Pen, you sound terrible," she says without preamble. "What's going on? You never called me back about the baby news and your family's reaction." Luna has been my best friend since our freshman year at Clearwater, and she's witnessed enough family gatherings to understand the dynamics without explanation. She's the one who coined the term Vivienne show for any family event that inevitably becomes about my cousin's latest drama or achievement. "It's worse than I thought," I tell her and explain everything: the dismissive reaction to my pregnancy, the discovery about Jonathan's connection to my father's firm, and the photo evidence I've been reviewing all evening. "Jesus, Pen," Luna breathes after I finish. "I knew they played favorites, but seeing it laid out like that, it's systematic emotional abuse." The words hit me like a physical blow because she's right. It wasn't just preference or personality differences. It was deliberate, consistent exclusion designed to make me feel less worthy, less important, less loved than Vivienne. "Do you remember my college acceptance letters?" I ask her, pulling up another painful memory. "How could I forget? You got into Harvard, Yale, and Princeton with full scholarships, and your parents barely looked up from planning Vivienne's gap year art tour of Europe." I'd forgotten that Luna was there when the letters arrived. She'd been staying over for spring break, and we'd opened them together in my bedroom while my parents discussed Vivienne's travel budget downstairs. 3 Ivy League acceptances with full academic scholarships, achievements that should have been celebrated for months, and my parents' only response was concern about how my success might make Vivienne feel inadequate. "They made me choose Clearwater instead," I remember aloud. "Said Harvard was too far away, that families should stick together. But the real reason was that they couldn't bear to have me achieve something Vivienne never could." And now you're pregnant with their first grandchild, and they can't even pretend to be excited because it threatens Vivienne's moment as the family princess. Luna's words crystallize something I've been struggling to understand. It's not that my family doesn't love me. It's that they can't allow me to succeed or be celebrated because it disrupts their carefully constructed narrative, where Vivienne is the star, and I'm the supporting character who makes her shine brighter by comparison. There's something else, I tell Luna, about Jonathan becoming the godfather and his firm's connection to my father's business. Oh my God, Pen. This is like something out of a movie. Your family has no idea that the person they've been treating like garbage is about to have massive influence over their professional lives? None whatsoever. In Jonathan, Luna, you should have seen his face when I told him about the pregnancy. He was genuinely excited. He asked about my health, talked about adjusting my workload, treated it like the wonderful news it should be. Because that's how normal people react when someone they care about is having a baby, Luna says firmly. Your family's response isn't normal, Pen. It's not love. It's not even indifference. It's deliberate diminishment. I close my laptop, having seen enough evidence to last a lifetime. The photos tell a story I've been living, but never fully acknowledged. 26 years of being systematically made to feel invisible so that Vivienne could shine brighter. What are you going to do? Luna asks. I'm going to be the best mother I can be to this baby, I say, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. And I'm going to make sure they grow up knowing they're loved unconditionally, not just when it's convenient or when they don't threaten someone else's spotlight. And your family? I think about Jonathan's genuine excitement, about the way he immediately started planning how to support me through the pregnancy. I think about the irony that the godfather of their first grandchild is about to become one of the most important people in their professional world. They're about to learn some very interesting lessons about the consequences of taking people for granted, I say. Starting with the fact that their daughter isn't the invisible supporting character they've always treated her as, and their first grandchild's godfather happens to hold their company's future in his hands. The satisfaction in my voice surprises even me. For the first time in my life, I'm not the one at a disadvantage in the family power structure. And something tells me that when the truth comes out, the Vivienne show is about to get canceled permanently. The weeks following my conversation with Luna blur together in a haze of doctor's appointments, work deadlines, and sleepless nights spent processing 26 years of systematic emotional neglect. I find myself at 12 weeks pregnant, finally past the danger zone where I might lose the baby, but somehow more terrified than ever about what kind of family this child will be born into. I'm sitting in Dr. Rachel Montrose's office for my monthly prenatal checkup, staring at the ultrasound screen where my baby looks more human than ever before. Tiny fingers are clearly visible, and Dr. Montrose points out the perfect formation of the spine, the strong heartbeat that fills the room with its steady rhythm. Everything looks absolutely perfect, Dr. Montrose says with a warm smile. Baby is measuring right on track. Heartbeat is strong at 165 beats per minute. Do you want me to print extra copies of the ultrasound photos? Yes, please, I say automatically, then pause. Actually, just one copy is fine. Dr. Montrose gives me a curious look. Most first-time mothers want dozens to share with family. Grandparents especially love these 12-week photos. The words hit me like a physical punch. Grandparents. I tried to imagine my mother Celeste cooing over ultrasound photos the way I've seen other grandmothers do, or my father Theodore proudly showing them off to his golf buddies. But the image won't form. Instead, I see them politely glancing at the photos before changing the subject back to Vivienne's wedding planning. My family situation is complicated, I tell Dr. Montrose, accepting the single ultrasound photo she hands me. That evening, I sit alone in my apartment, the ultrasound photo propped against my laptop screen while I video chat with my college roommate Zara, who now lives in Portland with her husband and 2 young daughters. Pen, that baby is gorgeous already, Zara gushes, her 4-year-old Mia climbing into frame to see the picture. Mia, say hi to Aunt Penelope's baby. Hi, baby! Mia waves enthusiastically at the screen. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet, sweetheart, I tell her, my heart warming at her innocent excitement. When you find out, I'll make them a picture, Mia declares before running off to find her crayons. After Mia leaves, Zara's expression grows serious. Okay, Spill, you look like you've been crying for weeks, and you're way too quiet for someone who should be glowing with pregnancy joy. So I tell her everything. About my family's reaction, about the years of favoritism I finally acknowledged, about Jonathan and the Godfather situation. Zara listens without interruption, her expression growing more horrified with each detail. Penelope, she says when I finish, do you realize you've been describing emotional abuse? What you're talking about isn't just favoritism. It's systematic psychological manipulation designed to make you feel worthless. The word abuse makes me flinch. It's not that dramatic, Zara. They didn't hit me or anything, they just preferred Vivienne. Emotional abuse doesn't require physical violence, Zara says gently but firmly. Making a child feel invisible, deliberately excluding them from celebrations, minimizing their achievements while elevating another child's mediocre accomplishments. That's textbook psychological abuse. I find myself thinking about my childhood therapist, Dr. Ellis Hampton, whom I saw briefly when I was 16, after a particularly brutal semester where my parents missed every single one of my debate team victories, while never missing Vivienne's pottery class exhibitions. Dr. Hampton had used similar language, but I'd dismissed it then as teenage drama. I need to call someone, I tell Zara suddenly, remembering that Dr. Hampton might still be practicing. After we hang up, I spend an hour Googling until I find Dr. Hampton's updated practice information. To my surprise, he's still seeing patients and has an opening the following week. The session with Dr. Hampton feels like stepping back in time, except now I'm an adult with perspective, instead of a confused teenager trying to understand why nothing I did ever seemed good enough. Penelope, Dr. Hampton says after I've updated him on the past 10 years and current pregnancy situation, I remember our sessions when you were 16. You were experiencing what we call golden child/scapegoat dynamics in your family system. He explains that in dysfunctional families, children are often assigned roles that serve the parents' psychological needs rather than the children's healthy development. Vivienne was cast as the golden child who could do no wrong, while I became the scapegoat who absorbed all the family's criticism and unrealistic expectations. But I succeeded despite their treatment, I protest. I got good grades, earned scholarships, built a career. Doesn't that prove they weren't that damaging? Actually, it proves how resilient and strong you are, Dr. Hampton corrects. You succeeded in spite of systematic undermining, not because of it. But success doesn't negate trauma, Penelope. It often masks it. He asks me to close my eyes and imagine telling my parents about a major achievement, getting promoted, buying a house, anything significant. What's the first emotion that comes up? Without hesitation, I answer, anxiety, fear that they'll find a way to minimize it or make it about Vivienne somehow. And when you imagine them being genuinely proud and excited for you, I try to picture it, but the image feels foreign, impossible. I can't. It doesn't feel real. Dr. Hampton nods sadly. That's because they've conditioned you to expect disappointment. Your nervous system has learned that seeking their approval leads to pain, so you've stopped believing it's even possible. The revelation hits me like a tsunami. I realize I've been unconsciously protecting myself from their rejection for years by not expecting anything from them. But now, carrying their grandchild, some part of me had hoped things might be different. What does this mean for my baby? I ask, my hand moving protectively to my stomach. It means you have an opportunity to break the cycle, Dr. Hampton says. You can choose to parent differently. You can choose to surround your child with people who love them unconditionally, like this Godfather you mentioned. I think about Jonathan's immediate excitement when I told him about the pregnancy, his genuine concern for my well-being, his honor at being asked to be the baby's godfather. The contrast with my parents' reaction couldn't be starker. I'm scared, I admit. What if I mess this up? What if I become like them? The fact that you're worried about it tells me you won't, Dr. Hampton assures me. Abusive parents don't question their parenting. They don't seek therapy to understand their patterns. The awareness you have right now is your greatest protection. I leave his office with homework assignments, journaling exercises to process my childhood experiences, and a referral to a therapist who specializes in pregnancy and family trauma. But more importantly, I leave with validation that my perceptions were accurate. I wasn't being dramatic or oversensitive. My family's treatment of me was genuinely harmful. That night, I called Jonathan to update him on the doctor's appointment and share the ultrasound photo via text. "Penelope, this is incredible," he says, his voice filled with wonder. "Look at those perfect little fingers. Have you thought about names yet?" His enthusiasm makes my chest tight with emotion. This is what grandparent excitement should look like. This is how people who love you react to your baby. "Jonathan," I say suddenly, "I need you to know something. Whatever happens with my family, when they find out about our professional connection, I don't want it to affect your relationship with this baby. You're already more invested in their well-being than their biological grandparents." "Penelope," Jonathan says firmly, "nothing could change how I feel about this child or about you. You're family to me in all the ways that matter. And this baby will always know they're loved completely, just as they are." For the first time since seeing those positive pregnancy test results, I feel genuinely hopeful about my child's future. They may not have conventional grandparents who celebrate them, but they'll have Jonathan, they'll have Luna, and Zara and Dr. Hampton, and a chosen family that sees their worth. And maybe that's not just enough. Maybe it's actually better. At 16 weeks pregnant, my body has started to show enough that I can no longer hide behind loose blazers and strategic scarves. The morning sickness has finally subsided, replaced by an energy I haven't felt in months, and the first flutter of tiny movements that Dr. Montrose assures me are normal for this stage. I'm leaving my appointment after hearing the baby's heartbeat for the 4th time when my phone rings with a call I never expected. "Penelope, darling, it's your mother." Celeste's voice sounds different, warmer, more attentive than I've heard in years. "I was hoping we could have lunch today. Are you free?" I almost dropped my phone in the parking lot. My mother hasn't initiated a one-on-one meal with me since I was in college, and even then it was usually to discuss something she needed from me. Yes, I think I can manage that," I stammer, already calculating how to rearrange my afternoon meetings. "Wonderful. I made reservations at the Garden Terrace for 1 o'clock. You know how much you've always loved their salmon." The fact that she remembers my favorite dish there surprises me almost as much as the invitation itself. The Garden Terrace is expensive, elegant, the kind of place she usually reserves for business dinners or special occasions with Vivienne. I spend the entire drive to the restaurant trying to guess her motivation. Maybe the pregnancy news finally sank in? Maybe she talked to someone who made her realize how dismissive her initial reaction was? Maybe she genuinely wants to make amends and be part of her grandchild's life? The Garden Terrace sits in Millbrook's historic district, all ivy-covered brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook manicured gardens. Celeste is already seated at a corner table, looking perfectly put together in a cream silk blouse and pearls, her honey blonde hair styled in the same elegant bob she's worn for 15 years. "Penelope, you look radiant," she says, standing to give me an air kiss on each cheek. "Pregnancy suits you beautifully." The compliment catches me off guard. When was the last time my mother called me beautiful? I can't even remember. "Thank you," I say, settling into the plush chair across from her. "This is a lovely surprise." "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation," Celeste begins, her manicured fingers tracing the rim of her water glass. "About the baby, and how I reacted. I realize I may have seemed less than enthusiastic, and I want you to know that wasn't intentional." Hope flutters in my chest like the baby's movements. "It wasn't." "Of course not, darling. You caught me at a terrible time. I was dealing with some business issues for your father, and Vivienne was having wedding planning stress. You know how I get when there's too much happening at once." The explanation sounds reasonable, practiced. She orders us both the salmon without asking what I want, but for once I don't mind because she remembered my preference. I want to make it up to you, Celeste continues. In fact, your father and I have been discussing how we can help with the baby. We know how expensive children can be, especially on a single income. My heart rate picks up. Are they actually going to offer support? Real meaningful help with their grandchild? We'd like to set up a small trust fund, she says, and my breath catches. Nothing enormous, but enough to help with daycare, maybe some of those expensive organic baby foods everyone talks about these days. Mom, that would be incredibly generous. The words come out thick with emotion. Maybe I was wrong about everything. Maybe they do care. There are just a few conditions, Celeste adds, her tone shifting slightly. Small things, really, but important for family harmony. The hope in my chest begins to crystallize into something harder. Conditions? Well, we'd prefer if you waited to announce the pregnancy publicly until after Vivienne's wedding. You understand, we don't want anything to overshadow her special day. It's only 6 months away. 6 months. I'll be 8 months pregnant by then, possibly already given birth. But Mom, people are going to notice. I'm already showing. Just close family and friends for now, she says smoothly. No social media posts, no big announcements at work. We want to make sure Vivienne has her moment without complications. The word complications hits me like ice water. My pregnancy, their first grandchild, is a complication to Vivienne's wedding. Also, Celeste continues, seemingly oblivious to my growing horror, we think it would be best if you moved back home for the remainder of the pregnancy. That little apartment of yours isn't suitable for a baby, and you'll need help. Plus, it would save you money. The offer that might have sounded generous an hour ago now feels like a trap. Move back home, where every decision about my pregnancy and my child would be subject to their control and Vivienne's convenience. We've already talked to Dr. Richardson. You remember him, the family physician who delivered both you and Vivienne. He's agreed to take over your care. Much more appropriate than whatever clinic you've been using. I like my doctor, I say quietly, thinking of Dr. Montrose's warmth and genuine care. I'm sure she's fine, dear, but Dr. Richardson knows our family. He understands our standards. Our conversation is interrupted when Celeste's phone buzzes. She glances at it and her entire demeanor brightens. Oh, wonderful news! Vivienne just sent photos of her dress fitting. Would you like to see? Without waiting for an answer, she turns her phone toward me, scrolling through dozens of photos of Vivienne in an elaborate white gown that probably costs more than my annual salary. Isn't she stunning? The dress is from that designer in New York. You know, the one who did the governor's daughter's wedding. We flew up twice just for the fittings. I nod and make appropriate sounds while she gushes about beadwork and alterations and how perfect Vivienne looks. The irony isn't lost on me that in the middle of a lunch supposedly about my pregnancy, we're spending 20 minutes discussing Vivienne's dress. Oh, and I almost forgot, Celeste says, finally putting her phone away. The trust fund we mentioned? We'd want to be the administrators, of course. Just until the child is 18. We have much more experience with financial planning than you do. The final piece clicks into place. They want to control the money, control my living situation, control my medical care, control the announcement timeline, essentially, control every aspect of my pregnancy and my child's early life. What about the father? I ask. Don't I need to discuss these decisions with him? Celeste waves a dismissive hand. From what you've told us, he's not interested in being involved. It's better this way, really. Single motherhood is challenging enough without having to coordinate with someone unreliable. And what about the godfather I've chosen? Godfather? Celeste looks genuinely surprised. Darling, you can't just assign that role to someone. It's a family decision. Your father and I will need to approve whoever you're considering. The presumption takes my breath away. They've ignored my pregnancy for months, but now they want veto power over my choice of godfather? Actually, I've already asked someone, and he's accepted. Well, you'll need to uninvite him, Celeste says matter-of-factly. We have someone much more appropriate in mind. Your father's business partner, Marshall Whitmore. Excellent family, old money, proper connections. Marshall Whitmore, who I've met exactly 3 times in my life, and who has never shown the slightest interest in children. The man who forgot my name at my college graduation and called me Theodore's other daughter for the entire evening. I sit there staring at my untouched salmon, realizing that nothing has changed. This isn't reconciliation or support. It's an attempt to co-opt my pregnancy into their existing family structure, where Vivienne remains the star, and I remain the supporting character who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw my way. I need to think about all of this, I say finally. Of course, darling, but don't think too long. We'll need to make arrangements soon. And remember, no announcements until after the wedding. As I drive back to work, my hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel, I realize that for a brief, foolish moment, I had allowed myself to hope that becoming a grandmother might awaken some maternal instinct in Celeste. That carrying their first grandchild might finally make me worthy of their unconditional love. Instead, they've found a way to make my pregnancy about Vivienne's convenience and their control. The trust fund, the move home, the doctor change, the secrecy requirement, the Godfather veto, none of it is about supporting me or my baby. It's about managing us, containing us, making sure we don't disrupt the family hierarchy that's served them so well for 26 years. I think about Jonathan's immediate joy when I told him about the pregnancy, his genuine excitement about being a godfather, his concern for my well-being with no strings attached. The contrast couldn't be starker. My phone buzzes with a text from Celeste. Forgot to mention, we'll need you to sign some papers for the trust fund. Legal formalities. Lunch was lovely, darling. Legal formalities. I make a mental note to have any papers reviewed by a lawyer before signing anything. Something tells me those formalities would give them more control than they're letting on. For the first time since finding out I was pregnant, I feel genuinely angry instead of just hurt. They don't get to ignore me for months, and then swoop in with conditional support designed to serve their own interests. This baby deserves better than grandparents who view them as a complication to be managed. And I deserve better than parents who think love comes with terms and conditions. 3 days after my lunch with Celeste, I'm sitting in Jonathan's office reviewing the Hartwell, Morrison & Associates campaign materials when my carefully constructed world explodes. Jonathan has been explaining the merger timeline when his assistant Marina buzzes through the intercom with an urgent tone I've never heard from her before. Mr. Ashworth, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a Theodore Hartwell here demanding to speak with you immediately. He says it's about a conflict of interest that needs immediate resolution. The blood drains from my face. My father is here. At Waverly Communications. The professional collision I've been dreading has arrived 3 months earlier than the campaign launch. Send him in, Jonathan says calmly, but I can see the tension in his shoulders as he quickly closes the campaign files on his desk. He gives me a reassuring look. Whatever this is about, we'll handle it together. The door opens, and my father strides in wearing his most intimidating business suit, the charcoal gray Armani that he reserves for hostile negotiations. His silver hair is perfectly styled, his jaw set in the expression that has intimidated opposing counsel for 25 years. Behind him follows a man I recognize as Marshall Whitmore, the family friend my mother wants to force into the Godfather role. Mr. Ashworth, my father says without preamble, his voice carrying the cold authority he uses in depositions, I believe you know my daughter Penelope. Jonathan stands slowly, his posture protective as he moves slightly closer to my chair. Yes, Penelope is one of my most valued senior directors. How can I help you, Mr. Hartwell? You can start by explaining why you didn't disclose this obvious conflict of interest when you accepted our account, Theodore snaps. Having my daughter on your payroll while handling our confidential business information is completely unethical. There's no conflict of interest, Jonathan replies smoothly. Penelope's employment predates your contract by 3 years. Her work has nothing to do with your account. and she's never had access to your confidential information. Marshall Whitmore steps forward, consulting a leather portfolio. Actually, Mr. Ashworth, we've done some research. Miss Hartwell has been the lead on several accounts similar to ours. It's impossible to believe she hasn't been privy to our strategic discussions. My heart pounds as I realize they've been investigating my work history. Dad, I've never seen any materials related to your account. Jonathan has been completely professional about maintaining boundaries. Boundaries? Theodore's laugh is harsh. Is that what you call this? He pulls out his phone and shows us a photo that makes my stomach drop. It's the ultrasound picture I sent to Jonathan, but it's been screenshotted from what appears to be a text conversation. You're texting intimate personal photos to our marketing consultant while he's handling our most sensitive business transition. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. The room spins around me. How did you get that? Marshall opens his portfolio and pulls out several printed pages. Your mother was concerned about your judgment, so she asked me to have our private investigator look into your recent activities. Imagine our surprise when we discovered you've been having a personal relationship with our business consultant. Personal relationship? I sputter. He's my boss and my friend. According to these phone records, Marshall continues, shuffling through papers, you've exchanged over 200 texts in the past month, including late-night conversations and weekend calls. You've had private dinners at expensive restaurants. And most concerning, you've named him as the Godfather to your child. Jonathan's face has gone stone cold. You had Penelope investigated? Your own daughter? We had to protect our interests, Theodore replies without a trace of shame, and it's a good thing we did. This entire situation reeks of impropriety. Either you're using your position to extract confidential information through my daughter, or she's feeding you insider knowledge to benefit your campaign strategy. That's absolutely ridiculous, I say, finding my voice. I would never— You named your boss as your baby's godfather, Marshall interrupts. A man you've known for 3 years as your employee. That's not normal, Penelope. That suggests an inappropriate relationship that compromises everyone's professional judgment. Jonathan steps forward, his voice deadly quiet. Mr. Hartwell, you need to leave my office immediately. Not until we resolve this conflict of interest, Theodore replies. We have 2 options. Either you remove Penelope from your company entirely, or we terminate our contract and sue for any damages resulting from this breach of ethics. The ultimatum hangs in the air like poison. I can see Jonathan calculating, understanding the impossible position they've put him in. The Hartwell account represents nearly 30% of Waverly's annual revenue. Losing it would mean laying off staff, potentially closing the satellite office, destroying the reputation he spent 15 years building. There's a third option, Marshall adds smoothly. Penelope voluntarily recuses herself from any involvement with our account and signs a confidentiality agreement preventing her from discussing our business in any context. She also agrees to distance herself from Mr. Ashworth professionally and personally for the duration of our contract. Distance herself? Jonathan's voice is ice. No personal contact, no Godfather arrangement, no pregnancy discussions during work hours. Essentially, she maintains a purely professional relationship with appropriate boundaries. I feel sick. They're not just attacking my job. They're trying to destroy the one genuine relationship I have, the one person who's shown excitement about my pregnancy. You hired a private investigator to spy on your pregnant daughter, Jonathan says, his disgust evident. You're threatening her livelihood and trying to control her personal relationships. What kind of parents are you? Theodore's face flushes red. The kind who don't appreciate outsiders manipulating our family dynamics for business advantage. Manipulating? I stand up, shaking with anger. Jonathan is the only person who's shown any genuine care about me or this baby. He's been more supportive in 3 months than you've been in 26 years. That's exactly the problem, Marshall interjects. You're emotionally compromised. You can't see how he's using your pregnancy to gain leverage over your father's business. The accusation is so absurd, so backwards from reality, that I almost laugh. Jonathan using my pregnancy for business advantage? He didn't even know about my father's company until I told him. You want to know what really happened? I say, my voice rising. Jonathan found out about Dad's contract by accident when I mentioned our last name. He was excited about my pregnancy before he knew there was any business connection. The only people trying to use my baby for leverage are you. Penelope, Theodore warns, you're making this worse for yourself. No, Dad, I'm finally telling the truth. You ignored my pregnancy for months. You hung up on me when I tried to share the news. You've spent my entire life making me feel invisible, and now suddenly you care about my relationships because they might affect your business? Marshall checks his watch impatiently. Mr. Ashworth, we need a decision. Will you be terminating Miss Hartwell's employment to preserve the integrity of our business relationship? The silence stretches for what feels like hours. I can see Jonathan's mind working, weighing options, calculating costs. The responsible business decision would be to let me go. One employee versus a multi-million-dollar contract, and the jobs of 30 other people. Gentlemen, Jonathan says finally, his voice absolutely calm, I have a decision. My heart stops. This is it. The moment where I learn whether Jonathan's support is real or just convenient, when it doesn't cost him anything. My decision is that you can take your contract and your threats and get the hell out of my office. Theodore's face goes white. Excuse me? You heard me. Waverly Communications is terminating our contract with Hartwell, Morrison & Associates effective immediately. We'll refund any fees paid in advance. You're making a serious mistake, Marshall warns. This will destroy your company's reputation. No one will want to work with a firm that can't maintain professional boundaries. Jonathan moves to his desk and picks up his phone. Marina, please call security. We have 2 gentlemen who need to be escorted from the building. Jonathan, you don't have to do this, I whisper, overwhelmed by what he's sacrificing for me. He looks at me with such fierce protectiveness that my eyes fill with tears. Yes, I do. No amount of money is worth working with people who would hire private investigators to spy on their pregnant daughter. Theodore's composure finally cracks. Penelope, if you think this man actually cares about you, you're more naive than I thought. He's just trying to look noble before he fires you quietly next week. Get out, Jonathan says, his voice carrying such authority that both men step backward. As security arrives to escort them out, Marshall turns back one last time. This isn't over. You'll regret this decision. After they leave, I sink into my chair, shaking. Jonathan immediately kneels beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? You just lost your biggest client because of me, I whisper. No, he says firmly. I just protected my family from people who don't deserve to be in our lives. And Penelope? That baby is going to have the most amazing mother and a godfather who will never let anyone make them feel invisible or worthless. For the first time, I truly understand that Jonathan isn't just my boss or mentor. He's the father figure I never had, and he's willing to sacrifice everything to protect me and my child. My family wanted to use my pregnancy to control me. Jonathan is using his business to free me. The difference couldn't be clearer. Within 2 hours of my father and Marshall Whitmore being escorted from Waverly Communications, my phone starts buzzing with messages from numbers I don't recognize. The first few are reporters from local business publications who've somehow already caught wind of the contract termination. Then come the lawyers. At least 6 different firms offering to represent me in what they're calling a workplace harassment case. Jonathan and I are still in his office, emergency meeting with the senior staff to discuss damage control, when his assistant Marina brings in a bouquet of sunflowers with a card that makes my heart skip. For the strongest woman I know and her lucky baby. Love, Luna. She must have heard something through her network of connections in the city's business community. How does news travel this fast? I ask, staring at the flowers. Marshall Whitmore's been making calls, explains Diana Chen, our senior partner and Jonathan's closest business advisor. He's trying to spin this as Waverly being unprofessional and unreliable. The good news is that most people in this city know what kind of man he is. Diana, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who built her reputation representing victims of corporate harassment, has been on speakerphone with 3 potential clients in the past hour. Far from being destroyed by losing the Hartwell account, Waverly seems to be attracting new business from companies who view Jonathan's decision as principled leadership. There's something else, Diana says, consulting her notes. I've been getting calls all afternoon from people who want to support Penelope directly. Anonymous donors wanting to contribute to a baby fund, local businesses offering services, even 3 different law firms offering free legal representation if her family tries to retaliate further. My phone rings again, and this time it's Dr. Montrose's office. Miss Hartwell? Dr. Montrose wanted to check on you after she heard about some family stress. She has an opening this evening if you'd like to come in for a checkup, just to make sure everything's okay with the baby. The concern in the nurse's voice brings tears to my eyes. Dr. Montrose somehow heard about today's events and immediately thought about my and the baby's well-being. When did anyone in my biological family ever show that kind of immediate, protective care? I'll be there, I tell her. Jonathan insists on driving me to the appointment, and as we sit in the waiting room of Dr. Montrose's office, my phone buzzes with a video call from Luna. Her face appears on screen immediately, eyes blazing with protective fury. Penelope Grace Hartwell, I am getting on the next flight from Chicago, she announces without preamble. I've already talked to my boss, cleared my schedule for the week, and booked a hotel room near your apartment. Luna, you don't have to. The hell I don't. Your family hired a private investigator to spy on you while you're pregnant, and then tried to destroy your job and your support system? Luna's voice rises with each word. I'm coming, and I'm bringing reinforcements. The reinforcements turn out to be my college friends who've maintained a group chat for the past 5 years. Within minutes, my phone is flooded with messages of outrage and support. Zara is looking into flights from Portland. My former roommate Cassie, who now works for a high-profile law firm in Boston, is offering her legal expertise. Even friends I haven't spoken to in months are reaching out with offers of help, places to stay, connections to resources I might need. Dr. Montrose's examination reveals that despite the stress of the day, both the baby and I are perfectly healthy. Your blood pressure is a little elevated, which is understandable given the circumstances, she says gently. But your baby's heartbeat is strong and steady. However, I want you to consider some additional support during this time. She hands me a card for Dr. Sarah Wellington, a therapist who specializes in family estrangement and pregnancy. Many women going through difficult family situations during pregnancy find counseling helpful. Dr. Wellington has evening and weekend appointments available. As we leave the medical building, Jonathan's phone rings with a call that changes everything. It's Marcus Rivera, the CEO of Thornfield Industries, one of Millbrook's largest corporations. Jonathan, Marcus's voice is warm through the speaker. I heard what happened today with Hartwell. I have to say, I've never been more impressed with someone's integrity. Would you be interested in discussing a much larger contract than the one you just walked away from? Jonathan glances at me before responding. I appreciate the call, Marcus, but I want to be transparent. The situation with Hartwell involved my senior director, who happens to be pregnant and was being harassed by her own family. Which is exactly why I'm calling, Marcus replies. Any company that stands up for its employees over profit is the kind of partner Pinnacle wants. Plus, my wife went through family estrangement during her pregnancy 15 years ago. She'd love to talk to your director if she's interested in connecting with someone who's been there. By the time we return to my apartment that evening, the support network that's assembled around me feels almost overwhelming. Luna has landed in Millbrook and is en route from the airport with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. Diana Chen has compiled a list of legal options for dealing with the private investigator my parents hired. Dr. Wellington has an appointment available tomorrow evening. Most surprisingly, Jonathan's phone call with Marcus Rivera has evolved into something bigger. Marcus's wife, Elena, it turns out, founded a nonprofit organization called Chosen Family that provides support for people who've experienced family rejection during major life transitions. She wants to meet me, not as a potential client, but as someone who might benefit from their support groups. I feel like I'm in some alternate universe, I tell Jonathan as we sit in my small living room, takeout containers spread across my coffee table. This morning my family was trying to destroy my life, and tonight I have more support than I've ever had. This is what real family looks like, Jonathan says simply. People who show up when you need them, who protect you without expecting anything in return, who celebrate your joy and defend you against threats. Luna arrives with enough Thai food to feed 6 people and immediately starts organizing what she calls Operation Support Penelope. She's made lists on her phone of practical things I might need. A better crib than the basic one I've been saving for, baby clothes, a baby shower that actually celebrates me and my child rather than making me feel like an inconvenience. Also, Luna announces, pulling out her laptop, I've been doing some research on your family's business. Hartwell Morrison & Associates is in more trouble than they let on. The merger with Blackstone Financial? It's because they're hemorrhaging clients and need the buyout to stay afloat. She shows us several news articles about accounting firms struggling in the current economy and 2 specific mentions of Hartwell losing major clients in the past year. They needed that Waverly contract more than you needed them, Luna tells Jonathan, which means your decision to walk away probably hurt them far more than it hurt you. Good, I say, surprised by the satisfaction in my own voice. Maybe now they'll understand that their actions have consequences. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Elena Rivera. Marcus gave me your number. I'd love to have coffee this week if you're interested. I went through something similar with my family when I was pregnant, and I'd be happy to share what I learned. No pressure at all. Congratulations on your baby. I show the message to Jonathan and Luna immediately starts researching Elena online. Oh my God, Pen, she says, reading from her phone. Elena Rivera founded 3 successful nonprofits, sits on the board of the Children's Hospital, and her husband's company is worth more than your father's firm could ever dream of being. You're about to be connected to some seriously powerful allies. For the first time since finding out I was pregnant, I feel genuinely excited about my child's future. Not because of money or status, but because they're going to grow up surrounded by people who choose to love them, people who show up, people who protect what matters. You know what the best part is? I say, my hand resting on my growing belly. This baby is never going to wonder if they're loved. They're never going to feel invisible or like they have to earn affection. They're going to know from day one that they're wanted exactly as they are. Jonathan smiles, raising his water glass in a toast. To Chosen Family. To Chosen Family, Luna and I echo, and for the first time in my life, I understand what that really means. 6 weeks after my family's failed attempt to destroy my career, I'm standing in the conference room at Waverly Communications, presenting the final campaign proposal for Pinnacle Industries, the contract that's not only replaced the revenue from my father's account, but exceeded it by 40%. At 22 weeks pregnant, my growing belly is impossible to hide, but for the first time in my life, I'm not trying to diminish myself to make others comfortable. Marcus Rivera sits at the head of the polished conference table with his executive team, all of them listening intently as I walk through the comprehensive rebranding strategy that I've spent the past month developing. This isn't just any campaign, it's the largest project of my career, and I've been given complete creative control. The key to Pinnacle's market expansion, I explain, advancing to the next slide of my presentation, is authentic storytelling that connects with emerging demographics while maintaining the trust you've built with existing clients. Our research shows that consumers under 35 value companies that demonstrate genuine social responsibility over surface-level marketing promises. Elena Rivera, who's been sitting quietly beside her husband, leans forward with interest. Can you elaborate on the authenticity component? We've seen too many companies get called out for performative activism. This is the moment I've been preparing for. The chance to showcase not just marketing expertise, but the deep understanding of authentic relationships I've gained through my own recent experiences with chosen family versus biological obligation. Authenticity isn't about perfect messaging, I say, meeting Elena's eyes directly. It's about consistent actions that align with stated values, even when those actions are costly or inconvenient. Your company's commitment to family-owned suppliers, your decision to maintain manufacturing jobs locally instead of outsourcing, these aren't just CSR talking points. They're demonstrations of integrity that resonate because they're real. I advance to a slide showing projected market penetration data. When companies consistently choose principles over profit, they build the kind of customer loyalty that transforms one-time buyers into lifelong advocates. Our campaign will highlight Pinnacle's authentic commitment through documented actions, not manufactured moments. Marcus nods approvingly as I continue through the creative concepts, timeline, and budget projections. When I finish the presentation, the room is quiet for a moment before Marcus starts clapping. Outstanding work, Penelope. This is exactly the strategic thinking we were hoping for. He turns to Jonathan. You've got remarkable talent on your team. I know, Jonathan replies, his pride evident. Penelope has been driving our most successful campaigns for 3 years. This pregnancy hasn't slowed her down at all. If anything, she's been more focused and creative than ever. After the Pinnacle team leaves, promising a contract signature by week's end, I remain in the conference room reviewing my notes when my phone buzzes with a notification from LinkedIn. Someone has tagged me in a post, and when I check, my breath catches. It's an article in Millbrook Business Journal titled Rising Stars: Young Professionals Reshaping Our City's Corporate Landscape. My photo appears alongside 4 other local business leaders under 30, with a full paragraph highlighting my work at Waverly, and specifically mentioning the Pinnacle Industries campaign as an example of quote, innovative strategic thinking that prioritizes authentic brand storytelling over traditional marketing approaches. But the real surprise comes when I scroll through the comments. Diana Chen has shared the article with a note, proud to work alongside such brilliant colleagues. Dr. Montrose's medical practice has liked and commented, congratulations to one of our favorite patients. Even Elena Rivera has commented, looking forward to seeing great things from this talented professional. The validation feels surreal. For 26 years, my achievements were minimized, overlooked, or overshadowed by Vivienne's mediocre accomplishments. Now, complete strangers are celebrating my success, while the people who should care most remain conspicuously silent. My phone rings with a call from Luna, who's still in town helping me prepare for the baby's arrival. Did you see the article? She squeals before I can even say hello. Pen, you're literally featured as one of the city's rising business stars. I'm screenshot everything and sending it to Zara and Cassie right now. It's pretty surreal, I admit, still staring at my photo in the business journal. What's surreal is that your parents have probably seen this by now, and they're realizing they tried to destroy the career of someone the entire business community recognizes as a rising star. The thought gives me a complicated mix of satisfaction and sadness. Part of me wishes they could feel proud of what I've accomplished, but a larger part recognizes that their pride would likely come with strings attached. Attempts to take credit, suggestions for how I could do better, or comparisons to whatever Vivienne is doing. My laptop chimes with an email from an address I don't recognize. Rebecca Matthews, Senior Editor, National Marketing Review. The subject line reads, Interview Request, Rising Talent in Strategic Communications. I open the email with shaking hands. Rebecca is requesting a phone interview for a feature article about innovative approaches to brand authenticity in the digital age. She specifically mentions seeing my work with Pinnacle Industries and wants to discuss my philosophy on ethical marketing practices. A national publication wants to interview me, not because of family connections or inherited opportunities, but because of work I've done with my own hands and mind. Jonathan appears in the conference room doorway. I just got a call from Rebecca Matthews at National Marketing Review. She wants to interview you for a feature article. I just got the same email, I tell him, still processing the reality. This is huge, Penelope. National Marketing Review profiles maybe 10 people a year under 30. You're talking about industry recognition that could open doors anywhere in the country. The irony hits me like a wave. My parents tried to use my pregnancy and personal relationships to limit my professional opportunities, claiming I was too emotionally compromised to make good decisions. Meanwhile, I've just landed the biggest contract in Waverly's history and attracted national media attention for my strategic thinking. There's something else, Jonathan says, his expression serious. Marcus Rivera mentioned that Pinnacle is opening a new division focused on authentic brand consulting. They're looking for someone to head up the department. Someone with exactly your skills and perspective. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying they want to offer you a position, significant salary increase, equity in the new division, full benefits including extended maternity leave, and the chance to build something from the ground up. Jonathan pauses. They specifically said they want someone who understands that authentic relationships require genuine investment, not just convenient arrangements. The job offer feels like vindication in its purest form. While my family was trying to control and diminish me, the broader professional world was recognizing my value and wanting to invest in my future. My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Wellington, the therapist Dr. Montrose referred me to. Saw the Business Journal article, so proud of your continued success. Looking forward to our session Thursday, where we can discuss how achievement and healing can coexist. That evening, I sit in my apartment with Luna, surrounded by baby gifts from my chosen family. A hand-carved crib from Elena Rivera's woodworking nonprofit, organic baby clothes from Dr. Montrose's family, a college savings account that Jonathan started the day I told him about the pregnancy. "Read me that Business Journal article one more time," Luna says, curled up on my couch with a cup of tea. As I read aloud about my innovative strategic thinking and authentic approach to brand building, I realized something profound has shifted. The validation I spent 26 years seeking from my biological family has become irrelevant. The recognition that matters, from colleagues, clients, and industry leaders, has arrived based on my actual capabilities rather than family politics. You know what the best part is? Luna says when I finish reading. Your baby is going to grow up with newspaper clippings of their mom being celebrated as a business leader. They'll never have to wonder if they come from strong, capable people. She's right. This baby will inherit something far more valuable than money or status. They'll inherit the knowledge that their mother built something meaningful through her own efforts, and that she surrounded them with people who celebrate achievements without conditions. My phone buzzes one more time with a notification. It's an email from the National Marketing Review interview scheduler, asking about my availability for a phone conversation next week. I scheduled the interview for Tuesday afternoon, knowing that by the time it's published, my baby will be closer to arriving and my new life will be even more fully established. For the first time since those positive pregnancy test results, I feel genuinely excited about the future I'm building, not just for myself, but for the child who will inherit a legacy of authentic success rather than inherited dysfunction. The call comes on a Thursday evening when I'm 26 weeks pregnant, assembling the crib that Elena Rivera's nonprofit delivered earlier that week. I'm struggling with the instruction manual when my phone rings with a number I don't recognize, though the area code is local to Millbrook. Penelope? This is Aunt Cordelia. Vivienne's mother's voice sounds strained, almost hesitant. I know this might seem unexpected, but I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. There are some things I think you should know about your parents and, well, about our family. The invitation catches me completely off guard. Aunt Cordelia has been Celeste's closest ally for as long as I can remember, the one who always backed up my mother's decisions and reinforced Vivienne's position as the family golden child. I'm not sure that's a good idea, I say carefully, given everything that's happened. Penelope, please. I've been watching what's been happening, and I can't stay quiet anymore. There are things about your parents' behavior that you deserve to understand. Things that go back much further than you realize. Something in her tone, genuine remorse mixed with urgency, makes me reconsider. Where did you want to meet? The coffee shop on Elm Street, near the university, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, if that works for you. I arrive at Brewing Point the next afternoon to find Aunt Cordelia already seated at a corner table, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. Her hands shake slightly as she stirs her coffee, and she looks like she's aged years in the months since Vivienne's engagement party. "Thank you for coming," she says as I settle into the chair across from her, my pregnancy now obvious enough that she can't help but glance at my rounded belly. "How are you feeling? How's the baby?" "We're both doing well," I reply cautiously. "Aunt Cordelia, what's this about?" She takes a deep breath, her fingers twisting her wedding ring, a nervous habit I remember from childhood. "I need to tell you about something that happened 27 years ago when your parents were trying to conceive." My stomach tightens. Whatever she's about to reveal, I can tell it's going to change everything. "Your mother had 3 miscarriages before you were born," Cordelia begins. "She was desperate to have a child, but she also had very specific ideas about what that child should be. She wanted a son who would carry on your father's business legacy. When she found out you were going to be a girl, she was devastated isn't too strong a word." I feel cold despite the warm coffee shop. "What do you mean, devastated?" She spent the last 3 months of her pregnancy in what we'd probably call depression now, though we didn't talk about it that way then. She barely prepared for your arrival. No nursery, no baby clothes, no excitement. I tried to help, but she kept saying she felt like she was being given the wrong child. Cordelia pauses to wipe her eyes with a tissue. "When you were born, instead of the joy most mothers feel, Celeste seemed almost resentful. She kept talking about trying again for a son, about how this wasn't what she'd planned for her life. But she had Vivienne," I say confused, "her perfect daughter." "That's what I need to explain," Cordelia says, her voice dropping lower. Vivienne was never supposed to replace you as the favorite. She was supposed to be Celeste's do-over chance." I stare at her, not understanding. "When Vivienne was born 3 years after you, Celeste saw an opportunity to parent the way she'd always imagined. By then, she'd convinced herself that her disappointment about you was justified because you were such an independent, strong-willed child. You didn't need her in the way she wanted to be needed. So she made Vivienne need her," I say slowly, pieces clicking into place. "More than that, she created a dynamic where Vivienne's worth was tied to being everything you weren't. Artistic instead of academic. Dependent instead of independent. Dramatic instead of steady. It was never really about Vivienne being better than you. It was about Celeste getting to experience the kind of motherhood she felt cheated out of with you." The coffee shop noise fades into background as I process this information. "You're saying she deliberately sabotaged my relationship with the family to make Vivienne seem more precious?" "I'm saying she never recovered from the disappointment of not getting the son she wanted, and she channeled that disappointment into creating 2 completely different parenting experiences. With you, she was always slightly distant, always waiting for you to prove you were worth the investment. With Vivienne, she was immediately devoted, immediately protective." Cordelia reaches into her purse and pulls out her phone, scrolling to a photo album. "I've been keeping these for years, waiting for the right time to show you." She turns the phone toward me, and I see photos I've never seen before. Pictures of my first birthday party. Not the small, subdued affair I remember from later photos, but a large celebration with decorations, extended family, and a custom cake. My mother is holding me in several photos, and her smile looks genuine, unforced. "What happened?" I whisper. "Your father's business partner at the time made a comment about daughters being expensive and not contributing to family legacy the way sons do. Instead of defending you, your parents started treating his casual sexism as wisdom. They began investing less in your celebrations, your achievements, your future. She swipes to more photos. My second birthday much smaller. My third, smaller still. By the time I was 4, the parties had disappeared entirely. Meanwhile, when Vivienne was born, they'd convinced themselves that this time they'd do everything right. They would create the perfect child by giving her everything they'd held back from you. Did Vivienne know? I ask. Cordelia's expression grows complicated. Not consciously, but children sense these dynamics. Vivienne learned early that her value came from being the opposite of you, from needing what you didn't need, from succeeding where you supposedly failed. It's been as damaging for her as it has been for you, just in different ways. I think about my conversation with Dr. Hampton about golden child/scapegoat dynamics, about how both roles are forms of abuse. Why are you telling me this now? I ask. Because of what happened with your pregnancy announcement and your job. Because I watched your parents hire a private investigator to spy on their pregnant daughter, and I realized I'd been complicit in something truly destructive. Cordelia's voice breaks slightly. And because Vivienne's engagement fell apart last week. The news hits me like a physical blow. What? The fiancé turned out to be a con artist. He was engaged to 2 other women in different cities, all of them from wealthy families. When the truth came out, he disappeared with the jewelry and money your brother and father had given him. I feel a complicated mix of satisfaction and sympathy. How is Vivienne handling it? Badly. She's been staying with us, crying constantly, saying she doesn't know who she is if she's not the perfect one, the successful one, the one everyone celebrates. Cordelia looks directly at me. She saw the article about you in the business journal. She saw the social media posts about your professional success, and for the first time she's questioning why she was never encouraged to develop real skills or independence. The irony is staggering. While I was building a career and preparing for motherhood, Vivienne was living in a fantasy world that my parents enabled until it collapsed around her. She wants to talk to you, Cordelia continues. She's starting to understand that the family dynamic that supposedly favored her actually prevented her from becoming a whole person. She's realized that you've been succeeding at life while she's been succeeding at being dependent. And my parents? Cordelia's expression hardens. They're in denial. They're blaming the fiancé, the private investigator, Jonathan, you, anyone but themselves. They can't face the fact that their parenting philosophy created one daughter who's thriving and another who can't function independently. She reaches across the table and takes my hand. Penelope, I owe you an apology for 26 years of supporting a system that damaged you. I owe you recognition for becoming an incredible woman despite their undermining. And I owe you honesty about the fact that your child will be better off with the family you've chosen than the one you were born into. For the first time in my life, someone from my biological family is seeing the situation clearly and acknowledging the truth without conditions or excuses. What happens now? I ask. Now you get to decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want with each of us individually. You get to choose whether Vivienne's apology is worth hearing. You get to decide whether your parents deserve any place in your child's life. Cordelia squeezes my hand. But most importantly, you get to keep building the beautiful life you've created, knowing that the problems were never about your worth. They were always about their limitations. As I drive home that evening, I realize that understanding the complete truth about my family's dysfunction doesn't hurt the way I expected it to. Instead, it feels like the final piece of a puzzle that makes everything else make sense. My parents didn't fail to love me because I was unlovable. They failed to love me because they were incapable of loving anyone who didn't fulfill their specific fantasies about parenthood. And my baby will never have to question their worth because they'll be raised by people who love children for who they are, not who they're supposed to be. 2 weeks after my revelation-filled conversation with Aunt Cordelia, I'm packing the last of my belongings into boxes when my doorbell rings. At 28 weeks pregnant, every movement requires more effort than before, but the excitement of moving into my new place gives me energy I didn't know I had. The job offer from Thornfield Industries came through exactly as Marcus Rivera promised. Department head position, significant salary increase, equity stake, and a flexibility package that includes working from home until the baby is 6 months old. More importantly, they're covering the cost of my relocation to a 2-bedroom apartment in Millbrook's new family-friendly development, complete with a nursery that overlooks the community garden. Luna opens the door to reveal Jonathan carrying coffee and bagels from our favorite cafe. "Thought you might need sustenance for moving day," he says, setting the bags on my kitchen counter. Behind him, Elena Rivera appears with her teenage daughter Sophia, both of them wearing matching Team Penelope t-shirts that make me laugh despite my exhaustion. "Please tell me you didn't have those made specially," I say, gesturing at their shirts. "Of course we did," Elena grins. "Sophia designed them last night. She's been excited about helping with the move since we told her about it." Sophia, a confident 16-year-old who inherited her mother's entrepreneurial spirit, immediately starts organizing my books into labeled boxes with an efficiency that puts my own packing efforts to shame. "Mom told me you're having a girl," she says without looking up from her work. "I've been saving some of my favorite books from when I was little. Thought she might like them someday." The casual assumption that she'll be part of my daughter's life brings tears to my eyes. This is what chosen family looks like. People who make space in their lives for your child before that child is even born. My phone buzzes with a text from Vivienne. "Can we please talk before you move? I know I don't deserve it, but I need to try to explain and to apologize." I show the message to Luna, who's been serving as my emotional bodyguard for the past month. "What do you think?" "I think you're strong enough to handle whatever she has to say," Luna replies. "And if she's genuinely ready to acknowledge the truth, it might be worth hearing." An hour later, Vivienne stands at my door looking nothing like the perfectly polished cousin I've known my entire life. Her hair is unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She's wearing jeans and a sweatshirt instead of her usual designer outfits. Most notably, she's alone. No parents orchestrating her appearance or managing her words. "Thank you for seeing me," she says, her voice smaller than I've ever heard it. "I know I have no right to ask, but can we sit down for a few minutes?" I gesture to my couch, now surrounded by moving boxes but still functional. Vivienne perches on the edge, her hands twisted in her lap. "Mom told me about your conversation with Aunt Cordelia," she begins. About how they raised us differently on purpose." Her voice cracks slightly. "I've been thinking about it nonstop, and I'm starting to understand things I never questioned before." "Like what?" I ask, genuinely curious. "Like why I was never encouraged to develop real skills. Why every achievement of yours was minimized while my smallest accomplishments got celebrated. Why I was always treated like I was fragile and needed protection while you were expected to handle everything on your own." She looks around my apartment at the evidence of the independent life I've built, the professional success I've achieved, the preparations I'm making for single motherhood. "I'm 29 years old, Penelope, and I don't know how to do anything. I can't balance a checkbook. I've never held a job for more than 6 months. I don't know how to be alone or how to solve problems or how to take care of myself." Tears start flowing down her cheeks. The engagement falling apart was humiliating, but the worst part was realizing that I have no idea who I am when I'm not being taken care of by someone else. I feel a complicated mix of sympathy and vindication. "What are you going to do about it?" "I enrolled in community college," she says, wiping her eyes. "Business administration classes starting next month, and I moved into my own apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I'm learning to cook and pay bills and be responsible for myself." The changes she's describing are more significant than anything she's accomplished in her entire adult life. That's a big step. "It's terrifying," she admits. "But watching you succeed at everything while I was falling apart made me realize that the protection our parents gave me was actually a prison. You were forced to become strong and independent. I was prevented from becoming either." Vivienne reaches into her purse and pulls out a small wrapped box. "I brought you something. It's not much, but I wanted you to have it." Inside the box is a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm shaped like a tree. "It's supposed to represent new growth," she explains. I saw it and thought about how you're starting a new life, building something real and lasting. I wanted your daughter to have something from her cousin that represents hope instead of all the other stuff. The gesture is small but meaningful in a way that none of the expensive gifts my family has given me over the years ever were. This comes from genuine reflection and personal growth rather than obligation or performance. There's something else, Vivienne continues. I want you to know that I understand if you don't want me in your life or your daughter's life. I understand that I was complicit in a system that hurt you even if I didn't fully realize it at the time. Were you, though? I ask. Complicit, I mean. Or were you just as manipulated as I was, in a different way? She considers this. Both, I think. I benefited from the system even when it felt wrong. There were times I knew you were being treated unfairly, but I didn't speak up because I was afraid of losing my position as the favorite. The honesty in her admission is more than I've ever received from our parents. What about now? What do you want going forward? I want to learn how to be a real person. I want to develop skills and independence and self-worth that doesn't depend on being better than someone else. She pauses. And if you're willing, I'd like the chance to be a real sister to you. Not the fake dynamic our parents created, but an actual relationship between two adults who choose to support each other. Before I can respond, my phone rings with a call from my father. I decline it immediately, but it rings again within seconds. He's been calling me non-stop since I moved out, Vivienne says. He and Mom are furious that I'm abandoning the family and, quote, aligning myself with your rebellion. They want me to convince you to come to Sunday dinner this week so we can, quote, resolve this family crisis. Family crisis, I repeat. Not my pregnancy or your engagement falling apart, or the fact that they hired investigators to spy on me. The crisis is that their control system is breaking down. Exactly. They're not concerned about our well-being or happiness. They're concerned about maintaining the dynamic that served them for 26 years. My phone buzzes with a text from Theodore. Family meeting tonight at 7 p.m. Mandatory attendance for both daughters. We need to resolve this situation before it gets further out of hand. I show the message to Vivienne, who rolls her eyes. Mandatory attendance. Like we're employees instead of adult children. Are you going? I ask. No, she says firmly. I'm done with mandatory anything. I'm done with being managed and manipulated and told what to think and feel. She meets my eyes directly. What about you? I think about the new apartment waiting for me, the nursery Elena helped me design, the baby shower Luna is planning with my chosen family. I think about the job starting next month, the national magazine interview scheduled for next week, the life I'm building based on my own values and choices. I'm moving forward, I say simply, literally and figuratively. Vivienne nods. Can I help with the rest of your packing? I promise I won't slow you down. I just want to do something useful for once. For the next 3 hours, we work together to pack the remainder of my belongings. It's the longest conversation we've ever had without our parents present. And for the first time in our lives, we're talking as equals rather than as the golden child and the scapegoat. When Jonathan returns with the moving truck, he finds us both sitting on my empty living room floor, sharing stories about our childhood that we'd never been allowed to discuss openly before. Ready for your new beginning? He asks me. I look around the apartment, where I spent 3 years learning to live independently, where I discovered I was pregnant, where I built the courage to choose my own family over the one that was assigned to me. More than ready, I say. As we load the last box into the truck, my phone buzzes with increasingly frantic messages from both parents, demanding to know why neither Vivienne nor I have responded to the mandatory meeting summons. I turn off my phone without reading them. Some conversations aren't worth having, and some bridges are meant to be crossed in only one direction. My new life is waiting, and I'm finally ready to claim it completely. The confrontation arrives 3 weeks later on a Saturday morning when I'm 31 weeks pregnant, assembling the changing table in my new nursery. The soft morning light streams through the windows overlooking the community garden, and I'm humming along to music while organizing tiny baby clothes that Luna brought from her shopping expedition yesterday. The peaceful domesticity is exactly what I've been craving. until my doorbell rings with the aggressive persistence that can only mean one thing. Through the peephole, I see my parents standing on my front porch looking like they're preparing for battle. Theodore wears his intimidation suit again, while Celeste clutches her designer purse-like armor. Behind them, I'm surprised to see Marshall Whitmore, apparently still serving as their strategic advisor, despite the disaster of their last encounter with Jonathan. I take a deep breath, my hand instinctively moving to my rounded belly, where my daughter is currently practicing what feels like soccer kicks against my ribs. "You've got this," I whisper to both of us before opening the door. "Penelope, we need to talk," Theodore announces without greeting or acknowledgement of my obviously advanced pregnancy. "This nonsense has gone on long enough." "Actually, we don't need to talk," I reply calmly, staying in my doorway rather than inviting them in. "I've been perfectly clear about my boundaries, and you've chosen to ignore them." "Boundaries?" Celeste's voice pitches higher with each word. "We're your parents. We don't need permission to speak with our daughter about family matters. You lost the right to claim the parent card when you hired private investigators to spy on me," I say evenly. "And this stopped being a family matter when you tried to destroy my career and personal relationships." Marshall steps forward with his leather portfolio, clearly prepared for this encounter. "Penelope, I think there's been a misunderstanding about our previous meeting. Your parents are willing to make significant concessions to rebuild this family relationship." "What kind of concessions?" I ask, though I already suspect this is another manipulation attempt. Theodore clears his throat, assuming his boardroom posture. "We're prepared to increase the trust fund we discussed to $50,000. We'll also publicly acknowledge your professional achievements and attend your baby shower, if you choose to have one." The offers sound generous until I notice what's missing, and, in exchange? "We need you to sign a family agreement," Marshall says, producing documents from his portfolio. Nothing dramatic, just some guidelines about maintaining family unity and discretion regarding private family matters. There it is, the catch. "What kind of discretion?" Celeste speaks up, her voice taking on the honeyed tone she uses when she wants something. "Well, darling, some of the things that have been said recently about our family dynamics could be misinterpreted by outsiders. We'd prefer to keep private conversations private." "You want me to sign a non-disclosure agreement about my own childhood," I say, understanding immediately. "About the emotional abuse, the favoritism, the systematic undermining." "Those are very strong words," Theodore protests. "We're talking about normal family disagreements that have been blown out of proportion." "Normal families don't hire private investigators to spy on their pregnant daughters," I reply. "And normal daughters don't manipulate their employers into terminating lucrative contracts out of spite," Marshall interjects, his voice carrying the condescending tone I remember from their previous visit to Jonathan's office. The accusation is so absurd that I almost laugh. "Manipulate? Jonathan chose to terminate your contract because your behavior was unethical and unprofessional. That was his decision based on your actions, not my influence." "Nevertheless," Theodore continues, "the financial implications of that decision have been significant for our firm. The agreement includes a clause about compensation for business losses related to this situation." Now we're getting to the real motivation. They don't want family reconciliation. They want financial recovery and damage control. The trust fund they're offering is probably less than what they lost when Jonathan terminated their contract. "How much compensation are we talking about?" I ask. Marshall consults his documents. $200,000, payable over 5 years with interest. The audacity takes my breath away. They want me to pay them for the consequences of their own unethical behavior. You hired investigators to spy on me, threatened my job, tried to destroy my relationship with my chosen family, and now you want me to compensate you for the business you lost because of your own actions? The contract termination was disproportionate to any perceived misconduct, Theodore argues, slipping into lawyer mode. Your relationship with Ashworth created an untenable conflict of interest that should have been disclosed from the beginning. There was no conflict of interest because there was no romantic relationship. Jonathan is my boss, my mentor, and my baby's godfather. Those are professional and chosen family relationships, which you would understand if you knew anything about healthy boundaries. My phone buzzes with a text from Luna, who's grocery shopping for tonight's dinner. Everything okay? Saw cars in your driveway through the Ring camera. The fact that my chosen family is monitoring my safety while my biological family is attempting financial extortion speaks volumes about the difference between them. We're not leaving until this gets resolved, Celeste announces, her composure starting to crack. Vivienne has already been influenced by your rebellion. We can't have both daughters turning against us. Vivienne isn't turning against you. She's growing up. She's learning to think for herself and make independent decisions. You know, the things most parents want for their children. Independent decisions? Theodore's voice rises. She's enrolled in community college like someone who can't afford real education. She's living in a studio apartment that's barely habitable. She's thrown away everything we've given her. You mean she's learning to be self-sufficient instead of dependent? She's developing real skills instead of being a decorative accessory to your egos. Marshall checks his watch impatiently. Miss Hartwell, these negotiations need to reach a conclusion. Your parents have other obligations today. Then I'll make this simple, I say, stepping fully into my doorway so they can see my pregnant form clearly. I'm not signing any agreements. I'm not paying any compensation. I'm not pretending that what you did was normal or acceptable. And I'm not allowing you access to my daughter. The final statement lands like a bomb. Celeste gasps audibly. You can't prevent us from seeing our grandchild, Theodore sputters. We have legal rights. Actually, you don't, I reply, grateful for the consultation I had with Diana Chen's recommended family lawyer last week. Grandparents' rights in this state are extremely limited, especially when there's documented evidence of harassment and attempts at financial manipulation. Documented evidence? Marshall's professional demeanor falters slightly. Private investigator reports you commissioned, email threats about my employment, witness statements from multiple people about your behavior at my workplace, recorded phone calls where you attempted financial extortion. I smile calmly. My lawyer has been very thorough. The three of them exchange glances, clearly not having anticipated legal preparation on my part. This is ridiculous, Celeste says, tears starting to flow. We're your family, we love you. Love doesn't involve surveillance and sabotage, I reply. Love doesn't try to control and manipulate. Love doesn't demand payment for supporting its own children. If you refuse to sign this agreement, Theodore threatens, you'll be making a serious mistake. Family loyalty goes both ways, Penelope. You're right, I say. It does. And you've shown me exactly where your loyalty lies, with money, control, and reputation management, not with your daughter or your grandchild. I step back and begin closing the door. Please leave my property. If you want to attempt communication in the future, you can do so through my attorney. Penelope, wait! Celeste starts, but I gently but firmly close the door. Through the window, I watch them stand on my porch for several minutes, clearly debating their next move. Marshall appears to be arguing for a more aggressive approach, but eventually they retreat to their car. My phone immediately rings with a call from Jonathan. Luna texted me that your parents were at your place. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I say, and for the first time in my life, I mean it completely. They wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement and pay them money for the business they lost. I told them no and asked them to leave. And they left. I think they finally understand that they have no power over me anymore. That evening, as I sit in my nursery folding baby clothes while Luna cooks dinner in my kitchen, I realize that the confrontation I'd been dreading for months turned out to be anticlimactic. My parents' threats felt empty because they were empty. Their manipulation attempts failed because I no longer need their approval or fear their rejection. I'm 31 weeks pregnant, professionally successful, financially independent, and surrounded by people who love me unconditionally. Their attempts to control me through guilt, money, and legal threats can't touch the life I've built. For the first time since finding out I was pregnant, I feel completely free. 8 months later, I'm sitting in the rocking chair Jonathan helped me pick out, cradling my 3-week-old daughter Harmony Rose in the soft morning light of her nursery. She has my dark hair, and what Dr. Montrose claims are her godfather's thoughtful eyes, though at this stage she mostly just looks like a perfect, sleepy baby who has completely transformed my understanding of unconditional love. The community garden outside her window is in full spring bloom, and I can see Sofia Rivera reading under the magnolia tree while her mother Elena tends to the herbs section they've designated for new parents in the complex. It's become our unofficial baby sanctuary, where new mothers gather for impromptu support groups and toddlers chase butterflies between the raised beds. My phone buzzes with a video call notification from Luna, who's been documenting every milestone of Harmony's first month from her apartment 3 blocks away. When her face appears on screen, she's wearing the Auntie Luna t-shirt she ordered the day Harmony was born. "Good morning, beautiful girls," Luna coos, making exaggerated faces at the camera that somehow always make Harmony's eyes focus with interest. "How was last night? Did our little angel finally give you more than 2 hours of continuous sleep?" 3 hours, I report proudly. "We're making progress." And Jonathan stopped by this morning with coffee and those pastries from Amelie's bakery. He's convinced that proper nutrition is the key to my recovery, though I think he just likes having an excuse to bring treats. The relationship between Jonathan and Harmony has been extraordinary to witness. From the moment she was born, he's approached Godfather duties with the same thoughtful dedication he brings to everything else. He's read every parenting book I mentioned, child-proofed his office for the days when I need to bring her to work, and created a college savings account that he contributes to monthly without fanfare. "Speaking of Jonathan," Luna says, her voice taking on the mischievous tone that usually means she has news, "did you see the article in this morning's Business Herald?" I haven't had time to read anything beyond baby care instructions lately, so I shake my head. Waverly Communications just won the Regional Excellence Award for Ethical Business Practices. The article specifically mentions Jonathan's decision to prioritize employee welfare over profit margins, citing the Hartwell situation as an example of principled leadership. The irony makes me smile. My parents' attempt to destroy Jonathan's reputation through their unethical behavior has actually enhanced his standing in the business community. Companies want to work with leaders who demonstrate integrity under pressure. There's more, Luna continues. Pinnacle Industries is expanding their authentic brand consulting division, and they're promoting you to senior director as soon as your maternity leave ends. Elena Rivera specifically requested you for their new nonprofit partnership initiative. The professional recognition feels wonderful, but what matters more is that I've built a career based on genuine relationships and authentic values. When I return to work next month, I'll be bringing Harmony with me twice a week until she's 6 months old, an arrangement that Elena suggested and Marcus immediately approved. My doorbell chimes with the gentle melody I installed to avoid waking the baby, and through the monitor I can see Vivienne standing on my porch holding a large gift bag and looking nervous. We've been building a real relationship over the past year, but she still approaches carefully, clearly aware that she's earning back trust, rather than operating from assumed familial privilege. "Viv's here," I tell Luna. "Can I call you back after her visit?" "Of course! Give my goddaughter a kiss from Auntie Luna." I open the door to find Vivienne looking healthier and more confident than I've seen her in years. 6 months of community college, part-time work at a local art gallery, and living independently have given her a groundedness that the years of family coddling never provided. "I brought something for Harmony," she says, holding up the gift bag. "I made it myself in my ceramics class." Inside is a beautiful hand-thrown bowl in soft blue and green glazes, perfectly sized for a child's first solid foods. Along the rim, she's painted tiny flowers in delicate detail. It's clearly the work of someone developing real skill rather than just dabbling in hobbies. Vivienne, this is gorgeous, I say, genuinely impressed. You made this? She nods, beaming with pride that's entirely different from the validation-seeking I remember from our childhood. My instructor says I have natural talent for functional pottery. I'm thinking about applying to the Art Institute's ceramics program next year. We settle in the living room, where Harmony sleeps peacefully in her bassinet surrounded by gifts from my chosen family. A hand-knitted blanket from Dr. Montrose's mother, board books from Sophia's collection, organic cotton onesies from Luna's shopping expeditions, and a mobile that Jonathan crafted himself featuring tiny airplanes that remind me of his childhood dream of being a pilot. How are Mom and Dad handling your independence? I ask, adjusting Harmony's blanket. Vivienne's expression grows complicated. They're struggling. Dad keeps offering to pay my tuition if I'll transfer to a real university. And Mom calls daily with emergencies that turn out to be minor inconveniences she used to handle herself. But you're not taking the bait? Not anymore. My therapist helps me recognize the manipulation attempts, and I've learned to set boundaries without feeling guilty. She pauses, watching Harmony's peaceful sleep. They've asked about you and the baby several times. This doesn't surprise me. Over the past year, I've received intermittent messages through Aunt Cordelia, and even a few awkward greeting cards signed simply Mom and Dad that arrived around major holidays. Nothing that acknowledges the harm they caused or expresses genuine remorse, just surface-level attempts to maintain minimal contact. What do you tell them? The truth. That you're thriving, that Harmony is healthy and beautiful, that you've built an incredible life with people who actually support you. Vivienne meets my eyes directly. That maybe they should consider what they lost by choosing control over love. Through the window, I see Elena Rivera approaching with a covered dish, probably more of the postpartum meals she's been coordinating for me through the community support network she's established in our complex. The sight of her makes me think about how dramatically my support system has evolved. A year ago, I was desperately seeking validation from parents who viewed my pregnancy as an inconvenience. Today, I'm surrounded by people who celebrate every milestone, from Harmony's first smile to my plans for returning to work. The contrast couldn't be starker. I keep thinking about something Aunt Cordelia said, Vivienne continues, about how the family we're born into isn't always the family that helps us grow. Watching you with Harmony, seeing how intentional you are about creating a loving environment for her, it makes me understand what healthy family relationships actually look like. As if summoned by our conversation, Jonathan appears at the garden gate with Sophia, both of them carrying grocery bags and wearing the comfortable familiarity of people who belong in each other's lives. Sophia immediately spots us through the window and waves enthusiastically. They're like your real family, Vivienne observes, and there's no jealousy in her voice. Just recognition and maybe a little hope that she might earn a place in this chosen family structure someday. They are my real family, I confirm. The biology was just the starting point. These relationships are built on choice, respect, and genuine care. Harmony stirs in her bassinet, making the soft newborn sounds that still fill me with wonder. As I lift her for feeding, I'm struck by how naturally maternal instincts have emerged when freed from the anxiety and criticism that surrounded my own childhood. She's going to grow up knowing she's wanted exactly as she is, I tell Vivienne. She'll never have to earn love or compete for attention. She'll be celebrated for her achievements and supported through her struggles. Will you tell her about our parents? About what happened with our family? I consider this question while Harmony settles into feeding, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger with complete trust. I'll tell her age-appropriate truths about family dynamics and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who love you well. But mostly, I'll make sure she never has to wonder about her worth, because it will be evident in how she's treated every single day. That evening, after Vivienne leaves and Harmony falls asleep for her longest stretch yet, I sit in my living room reflecting on the journey that brought me here. 12 months ago, I was calling my mother to share pregnancy news that was met with silence. Tonight, My phone is full of messages from people celebrating Harmony's 3-week milestone with the kind of genuine excitement I always wished my parents would show. Dr. Wellington was right when she told me that healing and achievement could coexist. Building this new life didn't require forgetting the pain of my childhood, but it did require choosing differently for my daughter's future. As I turn off the lights and head toward my bedroom, I pass Harmony's nursery and peek in at her, sleeping peacefully in the crib Jonathan assembled, surrounded by love letters from her chosen family, in a home filled with the kind of unconditional acceptance I spent 26 years seeking elsewhere. Tomorrow, Elena is hosting a playdate for the new mothers in our complex. Luna is planning Harmony's 1-month photo session. Jonathan is taking us to dinner to celebrate my decision to return to work part-time. Sophia is reading her favorite childhood book to Harmony for the first time. My daughter will never know what it feels like to be invisible in her own family because she'll never be invisible in ours. And that, I realize, is the greatest gift I could ever give her. Not protection from all hardship, but the certainty that she is seen, valued, and loved exactly as she is, by people who chose to be in her life, and who choose that love every single day. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.